Welcome to the Greg Bennett Show. I'm your host, Greg Bennett, and this is an absolutely fantastic conversation with a good mate of mine, Josh Amberger. Josh tells some of his incredible highs in his career. He then shares some stories that he's never shared before on some of the lows that he's had and how he dealt with those. And then we also discuss his relationship with his wife, Ashley Gentle, who is the current world number one in the world of triathlon, and how they're able to manage each other's careers. Some really fun conversations around their relationship. I think you'll thoroughly enjoy it. I really had a good time in this conversation. This episode was a fraction longer than most because it is just such a fun and interesting chat. I hope you enjoy it as much as I did. And remember, success comes to those who endure just one moment longer. You're on a mission. Now, whether that's tackling an Ironman, getting ready for triathlon or a marathon, you've got a busy life, chasing your dreams, you've got goals. But here's the deal. Are you fueling that mission with the good stuff, or are you settling for some kind of junk? Now, fast food is here for you. Think of it as the Tesla of sports fuel. We're all about 100% real food, crafted by performance chefs, scientists, and athletes. No weird experiments, just pure energy. Now, let me introduce you to the lineup. There's the Galacto Gel, Galacto Gummy, and the Hydrator. These aren't just your average fuels. These are backed by our secret weapon, the Optimal Energy Release System, with glucose for that lightning quick power, galactose for that more sustained energy, and the fructose, which helps with the hydration. And guess what? Fast food is the brainchild of Adam Malonis, who was on episode 174 of the podcast, so go check it out. He's an Ironman triathlete and he's a culinary genius. He knows how to fuel a mission. So it's decision time. Are you ready to level up your fueling game? Fast food is your ticket to the next level. Your mission is our mission. Head over to fastfood.com and get ready to fly. That's fastfood.com. All right, today's guest is an iconic figure in the world of triathlon, having been a professional for over a decade. But honestly, I feel like I've known him for, probably more like 2 or 3 decades. He's been around for what seems like an eternity for me, but here he is. I finally got him on the show. His incredible accolades, including the 2017 IRONMAN Asia-Pacific Championships, which he won in front of a star-studded field. That really was a highlight for him. Add to that, he's 11-time Ironman 70.3 champion. He's also known for being the fastest swimmer in the world of triathlon for well over the past 10 years. And let's not forget, he claims to have the best haircut in the sport. But beyond his athletic prowess, he's a character, a fan of death metal, films about war, and known for his sense of humor. He's a good mate, and we've battled on the race course many times. I think I was on my way out when he was on his way in, and I think he got me quite a few times. But anyway, we can talk about that in the show. His wife, Ashley Gentle, current world number one rank on the PTO ranking. She was on the show about 2 years ago. And since I have had her on the show, I think I've been asking this guy since to come on. And I finally got him here. It took some doing, but here he is. So welcome, and thanks for joining me on the Greg Bennett Show, Josh Amberger. How are you, mate?
Hey, Greg. Yeah, mate, I'm really good, thanks. I was super impressed by that intro. I just thought that you talk forever, to be honest. Yeah, I bet you had to do some research to dig up those results, though.
Oh, not at all, mate. I follow your career like you wouldn't believe. No, it actually takes me back. I can't remember, when we were racing, you were still you were playing around with some of the half distances, but you were still kind of doing some of the more Olympic distance stuff, and you'd transitioned from the ITU stuff, and slowly you were getting into the long stuff. And I'll never forget when you won that, the big Asia-Pacific champs, and it was a star-studded field, mate. That's why I do remember that one, and I think that was really cool. Does that still bring back fond memories for you?
Yeah, 100%. It's actually the only Ironman that I've won so far, and just kind of preparing myself for this podcast talking about highs and lows in my career is definitely up there in one of the highs. I'd actually only started racing Ironman that year. I dabbled the year prior. I don't know if I want to segue into this story just yet, but yeah, definitely that Cairns win was definitely a high, and sort of, I've really built my career in different phases from, draft legal to non-drafting Olympic distance 70.3, and then into Ironman, and now I kind of do like a combination of all sort of non-drafting distances. But yeah, that Cairns win definitely told me I had a future ahead of me in Ironman, and that's where I've sort of landed my passion and in my training and racing the last few years. So I'm definitely looking for that next win.
Well, we can talk about
a
a certain race you did last year where you got second in a moment, but I just want to quickly, before we move on from this, just for listeners, that race that you won in an 8:02, but the people right behind you, and Joe Gamble's, Braden Curry, Tim Van Berkel, you and him seem to have tussled it out for the past 5-10 years. Every result I looked, Burke's name is next to yours. David Dello, Cam Worth was in there, Cam Brown was in there. It was a really incredible performance for you.
Was there too.
Crowe was there too. There we go. You're taking out all the big ones.
Braden Curry.
Braden Curry.
Yeah, Curry.
I think I said Braden Curry, didn't I? Or did I skip over him, did I? Yeah. It really was an amazing one. Where are you at the moment? You've gotten up early for me, haven't you?
Yeah, so just at home in Brisbane, Australia. So it's kind of this, normally it would be in Kona this time of year. So it's definitely a bit weird being home in September back in Brisbane, but we're actually getting ready for another trip overseas. We've got 70.3 Langkawi next week in Malaysia. That's the Asia-Pac Champ. So I'm doing that with Ash as well, but then I'm heading off to Europe for one Ironman and then a sponsored commitment. So still some travel left in the year, and a little bit of racing too.
By the way, you mentioned Ash. I don't think I've spoken to you to say congrats on finally tying the knot. I think our trips in Beijing and other events, I'm like, hey, mate, what are you doing here? When are you going to tie the knot with this one? And, congrats. When did you guys actually get married? When was that?
Well, to be honest, mate, I probably didn't have enough people telling me to get a wriggle on with that proposal because I think she'd been thinking about it for quite some time before I really did. The funny story around it is actually I asked for her dad's blessing when we moved into a house. We built a house in 2018, and he was helping me with a bit of landscaping when we moved in, and I thought it just sounded like a nice time to ask for his blessing, but I actually didn't have any immediate plans to propose still. And it took a couple of years of limbo for him to call me up and say, Josh, mate, like, I'm a bit worried what's going on. And so, I went out and bought a ring that day. Well, I ordered a ring that day and got my ass into gear with that. So, we got married this time last year. So it was actually an amazing finish to the year coming home from 5 months on the road, hitting Kona, then coming home and kind of like cruising into wedding mode and bucks mode and getting that done, and honeymoon and then kind of by the time we had the honeymoon, we'd already been like doing nothing for 4 or 5 weeks on our break. So it was time to get back into pre-season by then. So I think the when we hit the off season this year, it's going to be like properly the first time we wind down for quite a long time. So well, it certainly didn't hurt Ash. Her year has been outstanding. Like I said at the top of the show, she's, world number one. She's been crushing the PTO events. And, when I had her on the show 2 years ago, she was actually in that in-between going, do I go for another Olympics? And I think she had a whole bunch of us saying, no. You'll do really well if you move up and go longer. And she really has. It's been phenomenal to see. I think you two are such a tight unit. You're such a great team. You obviously bring the best out of each other. How is that married life? Is it any different for you, or does it feel much the same? Oh, mate, it's not different at all, to be honest.
It's only kids that really make it different.
And that's the whole thing you mentioned with her. Like, we've all got in our minds where we think her strengths could lie in her future. She's kind of straddling the the do I go for another Olympics? She was so focused on the Olympics for so long, and they didn't reward the two Olympics she went to they didn't reward her in any way, and in fact she came home just broken from both of them. So that's kind of been not my struggle, but I've experienced the sport on every level. In terms of racing since I was much younger, and Ash being locked into like draft legal from in all her 20s and into her early 30s. So it's kind of like, just come and experience this side of the sport for a while and see how you go, because, her passion for the sport kind of like waxed and waned through those Olympics years with, the success and failure of it. And at various times she mentioned to me she was like close to pulling up stumps and just throwing in the towel when at points when I had no idea she didn't, that she felt like the sport about that. But yeah, she was just so burnt out, and the key was just to not press her too hard. And she told me the other day, actually it only makes sense. Both her and my dad are Pisces, and they can't be told what to do. They'll ask for advice, but they can't be told. You just kind of got to let them make their own mind up. And that's definitely Ash. She's had to find this point by herself, and we can like kind of guide her in certain ways. But now that she's actually committed to something other than the Olympic cycle, she's flourishing in the sport and actually loving it again. So it's just amazing to see. And
well, it's been so exciting
supporting her through this time as well.
Seriously, I mean, I know what it's like. Obviously Laura and I were a team, a bit like you and Ash, and I know what it's like for you to sort of play have your own career, but also be playing a support role. And it does take a team, and it's like you said, you tread carefully, you give a little subtle advice, but maybe don't over give too much. I think Laura and Ash are very similar like that. It's like, okay, I know this is time for me to step back and maybe, not give too much more here. But mate, your own career.
Sometimes I don't know the line there. That's my problem. But.
I know. Well, and often it's harder when you're tired as well, right? I mean, when you're training hard, you're training, that 20 to 30 hour type weeks, and you're exhausted, and sometimes you can see something, and so you say it, and then you're like, probably the wrong time, but here we go. You get in trouble a bit?
Oh, 100%, yeah. We were actually at the velodrome yesterday doing aero testing. It was Ash's first time ever doing aero testing, and she was a little bit nervous about riding around the track. The heavy banks, particularly in aero position. She's ridden the track before, but not in aero position. And we were there getting set up, and she's like firing off all these subtle remarks at me, like, Josh, focus. I'm like, I'm actually 100% focused. Like, what's going on? And she was just kind of nervous about the situation and taking it out on me for no reason. But me and the guys there, we just they picked up on it. And I don't know, when she went for her first aero run, we kind of had a laugh about it.
I know it's.
But yeah, she's got a fire in the eye, and amazing girl. But sometimes, the management side is another thing.
Yeah. Do you guys have who's coaching you guys? You coach yourselves, or do you guys have coaches?
Our coach is David Tilbury-Davis, British expat living in Finland. So
okay.
It's my first year with him, but Ash has just finished up her second season with David.
Okay, so you both have the same coach. That's kind of good to have a coach. Sometimes rather than you writing her program and vice versa, I think it's probably nice to have that.
Oh, yeah, that wouldn't happen, mate. Like, I couldn't write her program. We have done it in the past. So one of these times where she's kind of been on the brink in an Olympic cycle was in 2019, and she was coached by Jamie Turner, who actually he had some indiscretions with the federation and got fired, and she came home kind of like didn't really know where to go. Was trying to qualify for the Olympics. Performances had stalled a bit, and now she was coachless through no fault of her own. And so she turned to me like, I need to get fit, and can you help me? And I don't really think we lasted much past 10 days. She claimed that I was trying to prepare her for an Ironman or something like that. So
you knew very well.
Yeah, she's definitely wearing the pants with her training.
Yeah.
Like I said before, she'll ask for advice, but final decisions, they're always up to her. So I'm fine with that.
Well, mate, let's talk about you a little bit here. Firstly, this past year, I'd say it's consistent. How would you describe this past year if we look, with your 5th at World Long Course Championships, your 4th at Ironman Lake Placid, and then I was interested to see 3rd at Hell of the West, Goondiwindi. It's a famous one in Australia for all listeners out the middle of nowhere. But mate, how would you describe 2023?
So it's been a reasonable year. Like I hope to maybe have some titles at this point, particularly at sort of the Ironman level. But to be honest, like the sport is just going to such crazy levels now. Like every race is just so much faster than the last one. And it's, mentioning the 5th place in the ITU long distance worlds in Ibiza, guys like Rico Bogan were in that race. That field was actually packed. And he passed me early on the bike, and I'm like, and I got dropped from him straight away. I'm like, who the hell are all these guys? Like there was like 5 guys all wearing their, National Federation kits, and I had no idea who they were. Normally you can pick a guy from like, their sponsors or, you used to be able to get really familiar with the athletes you raced. And now there's just half a dozen guys in every field you go to. You got no idea who they are, and they absolutely like have you on the limit. And in that race, Rico Bogan led the bike, dropped us all, fell back on the run. Which I was pretty pleased about. Like my future in the sport was kind of in the balance during that race. I'm like, if half a dozen guys I don't know beat me, then I think like maybe I'll just be Ash's masseuse on the circuit for a while. But it's just like it's the sport's just going another level. So my job this season has just been trying to obviously like focus in on my strengths, but in trying to improve my weaknesses and really sort of just find my place again in the kind of new generation and the new way of racing. It's like my weapon, and it used to be swimming, still is, and biking as well, but my bike ability has just kind of been neutralized. I'm not swimming and biking off the front anymore. There's packs around me, and then the run is always been my weakness. So I'm just trying to still improve that and see where I land in those fields. But I've thrown my hat into some super competitive races. Like I got late starts for PTO Milwaukee and PTO Singapore, and featured, pretty well in those races considering my limited prep. I'd been preparing for Lake Placid and Ironman Lake Placid, and then all of a sudden was on the start line for Milwaukee 10 days later. So it was a massive juggle to try and perform well at the Ironman and the middle distance races. But I think I managed it pretty well, and given a little bit more prep time for next year for those sort of contrasting distances, I think I can do even better. So I'm happy with where things are at this season, but not satisfied. So I kind of want more.
Yeah, it's funny you mention all these new names. As somebody who likes a conversation each week, probably at least half the episodes are with, world-renowned triathletes like yourself, and there's so many new names, and I feel like I'm becoming a dinosaur going, who are all these new people? And, I had Rico Bogan on the podcast a few weeks ago, 22-year-old that just came out smashing it, winning the 70.3 world champs. And you look at all those names of these guys, and it used to be, 10, 15 years ago, you could kind of pick the dozen or so names that were likely contenders. And now there's a bunch of Europeans that I'm never heard of. Some of them I don't even know where the country flags are from. I'm like, what? Where's this from? You know, it's like, it's really quite incredible how, and to your point, that there's strengths across the board, swimming, biking, and running. It's like, wow, these guys are coming out with weapons across the board at a young age. It's really quite out. I mean, look at what Sam Laidlow did at Ironman World Champs in Nice. You know, he's 24 and just crushed the swim, bike, and run. It really is amazing. We got this new sport of incredible athletes. What did you think about Nice?
Yeah, so Nice was actually the first Ironman World Champs I'd kind of watched from start to finish, because I've been in the last 4 or 5
of course.
them.
Yeah.
And, you know, when I wasn't racing Kona, I never used to get up at 2 a.m. here in Australia to watch it. So, and then like, I always kind of lose interest in race recordings once I know the results. I kind of can never be bothered going back and watching the races again. So yeah, it's super interesting to kind of watch, my first world champs from start to finish. And the reason I wasn't there racing myself is Ashley's brother-in-law my brother-in-law, Ashley's brother, got married that day. So
you had qualified and you didn't go? That was the choice?
Yeah, correct. Yeah. So I just chose to do the wedding. Like, I've missed many life events.
Yeah.
Racing on the circuit. I'm 34 now, and I wanted to make the wedding. So, I mean, it was just looking at, you can't talk about that race without saying something about Laidlow. Like, his efficiency on the bike is just absolutely like mind melting. You know, he's like just like a statue riding up these climbs, and it's just crazy how he's moving so well. And then he's got the run legs to finish it off. Normally in the past, I'm talking about myself as like a swim biker before, and the run's always been a weakness. If you're not a runner, you don't, you just look like shit out there, and you're just stuffy. I'm thinking back to sort of like the Norman Stardley years and the Chris Liotta years. Like, the good bikers, they couldn't run. But now they're running low 240s, and the runners are running low 230s. So
do you think that's shoes, or what is it? Do you think? I mean, is it just better athletes, or is it? Yeah,
it's everything's better. Technology, training. I mean, kids. I'm at this interesting stage where I'm like quite active on Strava in my local area, and I'm like looking at what the kids are doing. The 13, 14, 15-year-old kids up to, 18, 19, and I'm actually kind of, because they're all taking my comms, so I'm kind of looking at what the kids are doing every day, and they have access to so much stuff that we didn't have when we were growing up. I couldn't even watch live broadcasts when I was a kid, because it just didn't exist. If you weren't in Kona on the ground, as an Australian, you had no idea where the level of the sport is and who won the race or anything like that. Like Twitter or no social media existed when we were younger, and now kids just have everything at their fingertips and they know where the level is. So, and it's happening across all the sports. I watch a lot of cycling as well, and all the Grand Tour winners are, well, not all of them, but they're all coming through in that, the Pogacars and the Vinigos, and they're all young 20s. So
it's amazing.
It's not exclusive to triathlon, but definitely is a shift in in this 21st century where the young guys and girls have access to so much stuff, and it's really, I don't know, that they're just so hungry to get to that next level, and they're doing it. So it's just crazy impressive.
It's incredible. Some of the records that are being broken, the women's marathon world record that just got broken, 2:11. I was like, I remember when Paula Radcliffe ran a 2:15, probably about 10 years, more than 10 years ago now. And I remember thinking, oh my God, that's the greatest performance of any male or female. It just blew me away. And then to just see that come down and just, I mean, and like you said, the cyclists, it's like the records just keep going. And I think we're still seeing that in triathlon, like you said. Hey, I want to talk about last year, because Last year you had an exceptional year, with the second at Ironman Australia and then also the second at Ironman Tremblant. Tell me about that second and how that feels as we talk about who was the person in front of you.
Yeah, so I actually had this written down, like I mentioned, highs and lows of the sport. And I want to talk first about the high being Ironman Cairns.
Yeah.
And for me, that high wasn't necessarily the race itself. It wasn't necessarily the result. It was more about like nailing the first Ironman.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you do it a couple times and you fail. Some people it might be more than 2 times, but then when you get it right, it's just the most amazing feeling. And that was definitely that race in Cairns. I actually attempted my first Ironman in 2016. I think I was 26 at the time. It was in Port Macquarie.
Mm-hmm.
And the story around this, probably not many people know this, but I actually was disqualified in my first Ironman. I had a draft penalty. So Clayton Fattel was off the front of the bike and I was riding very conservatively with like Tim Reed and Dave Dello the whole day. And I got a draft penalty like the last 15K of the bike just before I was about to go up the pinch at Matthew Flinders. And like any, drafting penalty, it was a bullshit penalty. And I don't think I deserved it, but yeah, that's the way it went. And we're in the penalty tent and I actually, the penalty tent was just open air and it was absolutely bucketing down with rain at the time. But I thought it was a good opportunity to relieve myself. And I thought I could go incognito, but I think the smell of it made everyone aware around me what I was doing, and I actually got dealt a red card.
Oh, no.
And I got through halfway through the marathon, and I was in 3rd place at that point. I got my way back up to 3rd before the head referee decided that wasn't good enough and he was going to disqualify me on the spot. So he took my timing chip and I couldn't continue. And now, of course, we've seen the rules change around disqualifications. You can keep going all the way. You're allowed to finish and then protest. But I was removed from the course. But so that's the story around my first Ironman. My second Ironman was Ironman South Africa the next year in 2017. And I was kind of fluffing around I did the first ever Super League in Hamilton Island 2 weeks before. And I thought I could go from Super League to Ironman South Africa. And, at that point, I didn't realise Ironman was that serious. Ironman racing in Australia, like that Port Macquarie race was pretty slow. But when I got to South Africa, I just absolutely got my ass handed to me. Like Ben Hoffman won that year.
Yeah, I remember that.
And the field was good, and it was I was just like, man, this Ironman racing, it's like 70.3 racing, but for 8 hours.
Yeah.
It was just that intense. And I wanted to do Ironman that year, and I'd already got my ass handed to me. I'd done 2 and failed. And it was 8 weeks until Cairns, and I thought, you know what, I want to do this, and I think I can do this. And in that 8 weeks, I fully committed and went all in and turned myself around. I was nailing the sessions. I was loving it and turned up to that race day in Cairns and everything just fell into place on that day. I actually ended up riding with Cam Worth when he came through on the bike, and that I'd be honest in saying that Cam Worth set up my race that day because I had the opportunity to ride with him. And actually, to this day, maybe remain the only guy who's dropped him on the bike. So at 150K, he started going through a low patch, and I dispatched him, went to the front, and I don't think I ran super quick that day. It was a low 250, and guys like Joe Gambles ran low 240s, but I had 13 minutes lead off the bike, which these days you just don't get that kind of lead anymore. And that's where racing's definitely changed. And that's why searching for that next Ironman win has become so difficult for me, because that win in Cairns was just it's a bygone era now, where guys still weren't riding that hard. But for me, that win in Cairns was, like just a physical triumph, but also just like a mental triumph. Like, hey, this is what I can do when I fully commit to something. And then that leads me to the original question, second place in Ironman Mont Tremblant last year. So I've been searching for that next Ironman win since then in 2017, and I'd come close a few times, some seconds, some thirds, had like a top 5 in the Euro Champs in Frankfurt, spent a lot of time at the front of the race in Kona before blowing up, but still never won that next Ironman. And I raced Ironman Mont Tremblant last year, and got second to Colin Chartier, who, as we know, went on to get busted for EPO earlier in the year. And that's definitely, when that news came out, that hit me super hard. And I haven't spoken publicly about this. I've had a lot of requests to do so, but knowing what I went through on that day in Mont Tremblant, getting ready for that race, and really, that race in Mont Tremblant, that second place, that kind of, it represents like a reinvention for me in the modern day of triathlon. I'd kind of had really average results through COVID. I'd really struggled for motivation through COVID. Got to, started traveling again early last year, got to Europe, got my ass handed to me every single race, just absolutely got hammered. And there was a point last year where I was like, okay, I have to rebuild myself from the bottom up to be competitive in the sport again. And that's what I did, getting ready for that race. And I brought my absolute best to that race on the day. And you know what? I performed really well. So I was going to be happy no matter what the result was, if I won or second or third or fourth or whatever. I'm the kind of guy where if I know I'm performing to my ability, then I'm satisfied. And that day I put together an amazing race and got second. And off the front all day, did it all by myself. And when Colin Chartier passed me on the run, it was about 25k in. He caught me at a rate I just didn't see it coming. I didn't even know who he was. And this guy passed me like it was a 5k, literally like he was running 5k out the gate. And I was like, when he passed me, I'm like, mate, you don't even have to pass me that quick. There is like no chance I'm going to stick to you at all. And you know what? He actually he beat me by 5 minutes, but on that day he could have beat me by 15 or 20. He looked so amazing. And he was just holding back that whole day. 3 weeks later, he went on to win the US Open in Dallas. And I was there that day as well. So I had to manage the turnaround from that Ironman to that short distance race. And it's physically what he did is out of this world. And we know now why. But for me, that I just felt I was happy after the race, and I didn't finish the race speculating, that was
you can't. You can't. Yeah, you can't.
Because that's what racing is now. You get beaten by guys you don't know, and I also use that as an opportunity. Like, hey, that was a great race for me. I got second. I still need to be better. I still ran. I didn't run in the 240s that day, and now you can't really win an Ironman without running 240s. So for me to rationalize that second place was very easy, hey, I need to get better. But like I said, that represented a rebuilding for me in my career, and I showed myself that I could do it. And from that point, I recommitted to, going through, I committed to the next 2 or 3 seasons, like, hey, I'm still searching for that win, but I think I can do it and I want to do it. And then when the news came out of his positive, it was positive for EPO. Like, I just felt so robbed.
Of course.
Just that someone can turn up to a race, absolutely, and perform unnaturally like that is. And we're actually in Spain. We'd just done a race this year in prepping for the PTO European Open in Ibiza, and I was doing the IT long distance, and yeah, it just rattled me. And I did a post on Instagram and had a lot of support around that. And my coach last year was Cliff English, who I'm sure you know, and he's like an old school coach. And he texted me, he's like, mate, we won that day. And it was just like, yeah, I have a lot of people now who tell me I won that race, but I didn't. There was no recognition.
Well, you didn't get your moment, right? It's like when you hear these athletes that get done for taking the gold medal at the Olympics and, we're giving a gold medal to the second place. It's like, no, you lost your moment. Like the moment of you know what it's like. You've won enough races. That's exactly right. Running down the carpet, the crowd, nothing hurts. It's the most alive you can feel. Crossing the line, holding the tape, the cameras, kind of not knowing what you do with yourself for a moment. You're kind of like, shit, I pulled it off, all that work and I pulled it off. All of those emotions that they stick to you forever. I'm telling you, I'm an old man now and they stick to you. And when you're robbed of that, as you said, you're robbed of the emotions. It's not just the physical thing. It's deeper than that. And look, it's sport. And it's one of those things, right? It's like you said, you had a great day. They didn't give you, you didn't get the win on the day. I think as athletes, we often talk offline about certain races we've been beaten in by certain people. Over my 20 years, there was always, that person seems a bit, without going too deep in it all right now. But it's kind of to actually have it happen, mate. I fell for you, when I was going through all your results and looking at your past couple of years, and that one really stood out to me. I was like, yeah. But good to be able to talk about it now. Probably,
definitely.
Yeah.
And it's funny, like, talking about being robbed of those moments. Like Cody Beals, he was third on that day, and he's raced Mont Tremblant he's won it multiple times, and he I did a post after the Colin thing, and I talked about how when I was there in 2014 for the 70.3 World Champs, I remember Javier Gomez won that day, Jan was second, and I can't remember who was third. It could have been Tim Don or someone. But
yeah, I think it was Tim Don, it was, yeah.
He got this, Javi got this, like, it's just the most amazing trophy I've ever seen. And it was like wooden, it was handmade, it was, reflective of sort of the local area, and I was like, man, I would love one of those trophies one day. And there's a picture of Colin holding the trophy after the race, and I posted it, and Cody told that sort of anecdote, and Cody Beals actually offered. He's like, mate, I don't care about trophies. You can have mine.
Oh,
he's been trying to palm off a trophy, this massive, like you'd need it. It'd be a separate check-in piece of luggage, and he's been trying to palm it off to me since then. So,
big shout out to Cody. What a cool story. That's really cool. I like that.
Yeah, Cody's a legend, yeah.
Mate, I think you should accept it just so we have that story forever. I think you should accept it, and then it can always be like brothers in arms. I love it. That's so cool.
Getting it back to Australia is the problem, but
No, that's all right. Just get Ash to win another PTO championship and put it as part of the postage. Mate, well, look, it's definitely going to be a story that you probably think about and retell a few times. Every now and then it's going to be like, ouch. But I honestly think, there's plenty more in front of you, and that's how you have to be thinking. Like my big time hasn't come yet, and you're at that ripe age of 34 where speed and power and endurance all culminate. And I think that's the only feedback I can give you is like you got to keep looking forward, right? Keep moving forward.
Yeah, it's definitely tough because like I know I've got more in the tank, and when I was younger, I was like looking at all you guys, and like, much like yourself, trying to adapt to your racing in the 50-on-50 series and the lifetime races was just I couldn't run to your level, and there are other guys in that class like the Bevan Dohertys and so forth. And I'm like, I spent my youth like waiting for you guys to retire so I could like have my time. And now now as an older athlete, I'm getting schooled by the younger guys. So
it happens, mate.
Yeah, definitely a reversal. But I know I got more in the tank. So, and I think we'll talk a bit more about Ashley, but having her in the mix now certainly inspires me. And I'm committed to the next few years and trying to get those titles before my body starts shutting down. So yeah.
Well, let's do that. Let's transition and talk about you and Ash, because I think we talked about her earlier, and I'm curious because I think you're both on top of the world. I mean, whatever you say, your results are so consistent and you're so in the thick of it that it really is just a matter of time to have another 2017 Asia-Pacific Championship type performance, right? It's like when the body and the mind just show up and everything clicks and you're like, wow. So I have no doubt that that's on the cards for you. But, talking about the two of you, I'm fascinated about how you're able to manage your careers and your personal lives. Like when you, getting specific, when you plan out your year together, are you kind of conscious of trying to make sure your travel's similar, your training and when you're going to peak is similar and your downtime's going to be the same? How do you do all that?
Yeah, I mean, Ash and I have been together for 15 years now.
Is it 15? My goodness.
Yeah. So we actually got together, it was probably about 2008, and doing some notes before the show, I actually had written down as one of my like highlights of my career that year in Vancouver, the ITU Worlds in Vancouver. And that was kind of, really when Ash and I started connecting. And she was actually still in school at the time. And I was a year out of school. And it was just kind of a weird point where we were on and off because she was on the Gold Coast in school. I was in Brisbane, started uni, and it like I really liked Ash, but was kind of just or sort of like in a different headspace. But I definitely like that year, first year in Vancouver. It was the first real year like I experienced the triathlon community and how like good it was, like seeing you guys race in the elites and the under 23s. I knew all the athletes. I was just super pumped on like the community and the spirit that we felt. I don't know if you remember us cheering for you that day. It was like 10 degrees, but
it was the worst.
It was the worst. With like body paint on. And
yes, I do.
Just like screaming at the top of our lungs. Like it was amazing.
But you crushed that too, right? You crushed that. Junior champs. Vincent Lewis won. Brownlee was in there. Johnny Brownlee. Yeah, you were fourth.
Lewis won and
yeah, I remember that. You were our new young Aussie star that we were like, yeah, I remember that too. That's awesome because I remember
the star that never materialized.
Yeah. I think Johnny Brownlee was meant to win. Remember everybody was talking about Johnny Brownlee and because of Alistair and then he got third, and then this Vincent Louis that none of us had ever heard of crushed it. And you were right up there in fourth. That's right. Yeah.
Yeah,
that's awesome.
But not to digress too much, but that was definitely like that was the first experience was like, wow, like this is triathlon and I want this to be part of my life. And I think for Ash it was definitely similar as well. That was her second year of Junior Worlds. She went on and did a couple more, but that was like both our baptism, and it was like this is amazing and we want to do this. And since then we've our relationship has developed in many ways, but triathlon's always been sort of at the core of that, and we've always just been going through the highs and lows together of racing and everything like that. But we've kind of always had our own separate goals in the sport. And so planning our seasons has been kind of easy and difficult at the same time. When I was much younger, I would just take off. I'd just book my travel, make my plans, probably not even like considering her at all. And I would come to, when I first started in non-drafting space and decided to exit sort of the federation and go out on my own, I was 21, which is super young for that to happen. Like now guys are staying in the federation till their late 20s and, kind of everything's done for them and they don't have to book flights or make plans. Like they can see the race calendar and it's super simple. But I was really young and I had the ambition and I had the fire to go through all the challenges and work it out myself and, come to the US where I had no idea what to do, where to go. All I knew that there was these races and I worked out Boulder was a pretty good spot to pace myself. So I'm lucky I had someone like Jimmy Sear who always had a room for me there.
That's right. Yeah.
But, I would take off for 5 months and not see Ash. I did try and link in like a couple of times. I went and watched her race in Hamburg and then she was doing her training bases in Vitoria-Gasteiz in Spain and I might stop by for 2 or 3 weeks. But for me, when I was much younger, I was just in full-on career building mode. And I would say when we were in season, it was a selfish pursuit. And she had probably various responses to that. I think one sense she was like really proud of me and what I was doing. The other was like she would see people with their support mechanisms around them and she would probably say, well, I'm here by myself, like, and be probably quite sad that I wasn't there with her, but she never really had the bone in her body to sort of speak out against that and say, hey, why aren't you here for me? And that would have been really tough for her, but that's now part of the fabric of our relationship. She learned to be self-reliant in the tough moments, and she can go to the biggest races in the world by herself and deal with everything around that, be totally capable and be self-reliant in the most high pressure environments in the sport. And I would certainly say that, she has those skills because I did kind of just like leave her to her own devices.
You did a huge favor. You're welcome, Ash.
I know looking at some athletes, they talk openly on social media about how they, and it's very obvious certain athletes need a lot of people around them.
Oh, yeah.
To do what they do. And if they don't have that, they let you know. But yeah, Ash she learned to be self-sufficient for a long time. But now we have the awesome opportunity when we're mostly doing the same sport. It's like funny now because she's made the change from draft legal racing to non-drafting. But of course in that we've got like the Ironman space, we've got PTO space and 70.3. And so we're like much closer to being on the same program, but still really not.
Yeah.
So I'll be prepping for an Ironman and off somewhere, but she's got, PTO the next weekend or something like that. And so it's, she's drawing on she has the skills to draw on to get ready for races by herself. But generally, we are now planning our seasons together. We've got our European base in Andorra. We've got our American base in Boulder, and then we love getting pre-season fitness here in Brisbane. It's like hot and humid and hilly and we've got amazing training here from home. We've got endless trails here in Brisbane. So we've got our 3 bases and
that's awesome.
You mentioned planning for downtime as well, and we don't even need to say anything to ourselves. Like downtime is like sacred. November, December, we're never racing. Like everyone every year is always asking when I'm doing busso, and it's like I'll probably never do busso because by then I've already put on 5 kilos and we're sunburnt from, camping on the beach for a couple of weeks. And,
Yeah, you guys are always off camping on your adventures, aren't you? Is it a Land Cruiser?
Yeah.
What do you drive up and down the coast there on the beaches and stuff?
I've got a Defender.
Defender?
Old Defender now, not the new yuppie one, but
No, a proper one. And are you up on Fraser Island or Stradbroke? Where do you go?
Yeah, we split between Fraser, which is now Gari, and Moreton Island, which is Mulgumpen. So
You got to watch out for the dingoes, right? The dingoes are eating people now.
Yeah. Yeah, just respect the dingoes and don't feed them, and you won't have a problem. But I think there's people have been silly buggers up there for a while now, and that's created the dingo issue. But I mean, these locations, for anyone who doesn't know, they're islands. Like Moreton Island is close to Brisbane. It's a 90-minute ferry ride on like a really slow boat across the bay. But once you're there, Brisbane's it's 2 million people. It's a big city. We're hosting the Olympics in less than 10 years.
32.
But once you're across the bay on Moreton Island, it's just the most amazing, tranquil slice of paradise. There's no phone reception, so we're totally unplugged. There's no sealed roads. You have to have a 4-wheel drive. You can't camp wherever you want, but you camp where like there's just a pole in the ground and it's like, okay, this is a camping site. Like this is where we're pitching up, and you don't have any neighbors. Like it's total seclusion, and it's a time where you can just fully unplug and reflect on the year, plan ahead, but just mostly just do nothing. Fish each day for sustenance, and that's our recharge time.
I love it. I love that you're so committed to don't talk to us November, December. I think the best thing that you guys are doing, it's not about having the same races or same goals, but planning this downtime to recharge together, understanding when build phases will be, understanding when we're going to be pushing, and you're there for each other, but you also know that, okay, I mean, Laura and I were much the same. It was like, don't talk to us December. We're unplugged. And she'd be off chasing the Olympics and everything else, and I'd be in the US, as you know. And I mean, she sacrificed more in the sense that I think we based in Boulder, and if you're going to do well on the World Triathlon Series circuit, you really got to be based in Europe. So she did a lot more long haul flying than I did, just going to New York and Dallas and whatever. But I do see a lot of what you and Ash are doing, and Laura and I have always been big fans of you, both of you, and it's been a real pleasure to sort of watch you both build your careers. I want to shift a little bit here, because one of the things, you have a tremendous fan base. You present incredibly well on Instagram and the social media. I think everybody hangs out for you for the way you write. Your cleverness is just off the chart, and the humor. Where does that come from? Are you, is this, I'm fascinated by the humor you bring and the way you articulate yourself on Instagram. No one is doing it as well as you. Where does that all come from?
You know what, I think, I don't know where the writing aspects come from. I tend to write better than I speak. So like every speech I've ever done's been shithouse. I don't prep, or I don't, like, even this podcast, I was quite nervous about getting details across, because I feel like I can get detail down and across much better in the written word. So, but I don't really know where that comes from. I went to uni and stuff. I did a lot of essay writing, but mostly I just, the Instagram's like an outlet for me to be creative and to be expressive. It's obviously like a marketing tool for myself and my sponsors, but mostly I don't post that much. But when I do, I want to make sure like it's quality and it's something that's enjoyable and something people can get something out of. Like I love to absorb content and be like moved by it and affected in some way, whether it's just funny or clever or emotional. And I just try and impart that in what I'm doing. And it doesn't always come. Like I'm not every time I'm posting, it's not always going to be something well thought out but when I'm doing a race report or something like that, if I have like a mundane social media task from a sponsor, I want to turn it into something creative. And in our sport, we don't get much of a chance to be creative. It's so demanding, and like I have a great admiration for the arts and music and film and things like this. Is like a big part of my life. But as a sportsman, you live half your life in this constant state of fatigue and sort of apathy between you have to lay low for half the day, because if you don't do nothing, you're not going to be able to make the workout and you're not going to be able to see any improvements. So if I can be creative and tap into that side of my psyche every now and again on Instagram, and people get something out of it, then
it's brilliant, mate.
That's kind of my goal there.
It's honestly, I'm going to be called out here, but for the most part, I find the athletes just tell me how great they are. It's kind of mundane and monotonous, right? It's like, okay, good on you. But yours, I'm not going to lie, I thoroughly enjoy it. The one you just did this week, I mean, it was this week, and your track workout and the way you put all that together, even just, I don't know, I had to laugh when you were talking about, I forgot my socks, but no, I didn't. It's simple. But maybe I'm just attracted to your sense of humor, because I just find it absolutely brilliant. And so, anybody that hasn't checked out,
it's an Aussie thing.
I don't know. No, there's no way. The world go to Josh_Amberger, everybody, and check it out. Sign up, follow him on Instagram. You won't be disappointed. Not to put more pressure on you, even if you go back and look at everything he's already put up there. It's just really clever. And I get what you're saying about having an outlet for being creative. It's just so disciplined. You're so narrowly focused. You're so, it's 24/7. You're focused on mental, emotional, physical preparation. And it was kind of one of the reasons I started the podcast, just between you and me, and everybody listening. It's a little bit of creative juice I get to have, just having a conversation and, being a little creative and not just being so straight and narrow. Mate, I want to wrap this up with a final 4 questions. There's so much we've covered. There's so much we've missed. I almost feel like we need to do another episode. But I want to finish with a final 4, and then maybe some rapid fire questions. You up for it? Oh, and maybe some opinions if we're quick. But
I'm not that great at these things, by the way. Like just as a note. But we'll see how we go.
Well, we'll skim right over it, mate, and we can always edit it out. There you go. All right. What would you tell your 18-year-old self? Go back to 15 years when you started out here.
So, I would tell myself to probably not be an idiot, generally not be an idiot. I actually got kicked off quite a couple teams from the Australian Federation for behavioural issues. Definitely debatable whether they were legitimate.
Behavioural issues. Hang on. What happened? What did you do? You're going to have to give me a little bit on that. What happened?
Well, I'd have to. So we were on tour in Japan, and this always thinks back to my advice I would give myself, listen to people, be respectful, stuff like that.
Yeah.
But I was quite, I don't know, boneheaded. I would not take authority easily. I had my coach, and if there was another coach telling me what to do, I wouldn't I wouldn't heed to that. I would stay on my plan. We're at a swim session in Japan before a race, and I didn't do the session that everyone else was doing because it wasn't what my coach wrote. But that was not, those details were not imparted on me. You have to do the workouts from the head coach on the tour. And, at that time I was swimming with John Rogers, who JR.
He's awesome, isn't he? Up in Noosa.
He's he coaches Jan Frodeno, Brandon Curry, but he was my first high-performance swim coach, I'd say. Not my first swim coach, but he really taught me how to swim. He taught me how to be competitive and to really chase something. And at that time I was swimming with JR and we had 3 Olympians in our squad. So there was no way that some guy was going to tell me what to do in the pool when I had a set from JR to do. So that actually ended up getting me kicked off the tour.
Wow.
And I actually had to fight to do the race. They wanted to send me home before the race.
Wow.
And I ended up winning the race and basically saying, yep, guys, shove it. I'm out of here. And I took the trophy home and went home and then planned my season. And I was 18 and I was on my own paying for everything myself and going to Asia, doing all the ITU Continental Cups by myself. And, that's where I got a lot of these skills to be able to go out on my own, kind of in the big wide world and build my career, was because I had to. I was like forced into these situations because I was getting kicked off tours. And it happened again 2 years later in Europe, actually, in 2010. And that was kind of like my last year at ITU when I was 20. And they just made it hard for me in the federation to continue. They would just...
Yeah, you weren't the right fit for the... You're not a good fit for bureaucracy. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So I would tell myself as an 18-year-old to, I don't know, just back down, just don't be a bonehead and maybe like listen to people and communicate better.
I don't know, Josh. I don't know if I would I would push back on you. I think one of the things that makes you so entertaining as an athlete to watch, which is part of the job of being an athlete, by the way. Yes, win races, but there's also an entertainment element. I think you're a man of conviction and you know what you want. And I don't know. I almost feel like we need more men like you that stand up for what they believe in. I think we've all become a little bit pushovers. So I'm going to tell your 18-year-old self to tell the 34-year-old telling the 18-year-old that he's wrong. I actually think you did it right. I think you've gone about it the right way. Don't get me wrong. I do believe in being respectful and having manners and all of those things, but I don't know. I'm being like an older brother. I'm like, I don't know.
No. Well, yeah, I mean, listening to myself talk, I also think, well, part of these events that happened definitely shaped me into what I am today. So it's like, it's not regrettable, but some things, of course, I've said to people, or the way I've treated people are regrettable.
Okay.
It's actually funny in talking to, I was riding with Richie Port last year in Andorra. It was a couple months before he retired, and turns out we actually had the same problems with the same administrator who kicked me off the team in Japan that year.
So I think I know who you're probably talking about.
It was a really funny moment between Richie Port and I, where we just bonded instantly over kind of like shared experiences from teenage years to young adolescence. So it was very interesting.
That's awesome. That is pretty cool. And it's even funny that it was it's the exact same person. So it may not be all about you two. There might be a common thread going on there. All right, next question. 3 people you'd want to have dinner with, non-family. They can be living or dead.
So I've got 2 answers to this, if that's permissible.
We can go whatever we want, mate. It's 2 mates having a chat.
The realistic and the non-realistic options, and considering we were talking about creativity before, I'd put my non-realistic dinner guess, and because ultimately you don't know if you're going to get along with these people or if they're going to be even talkable or not. So I've got David Lynch, who is, he's an auteur, he's an artist. His films are definitely sort of part of my psyche, and shows like Twin Peaks and so forth. But also Noel Fielding and Julian Barrett, who are the duo known as the Mighty Boosh. And if you've ever watched 2000s absurdist comedy from Britain, you definitely know who I'm talking about. But these 3, they're all creatives, and I just think that it would be an absolute hoot to have all these 3 people at the table, particularly Noel Fielding and Julian Barrett. Howard Moon and Vince Noir, they that's their characters in this show, The Mighty Boosh. So that's my 3 unrealistic options.
I love it. That's awesome. I know.
And
Yeah.
my realistic options would just be my mates. So we've got a little group, a little trio here in Brisbane. We're called the Lager Club. And that is Dan Wilson, who you'd know from
top bloke. Yeah.
Yep. And Dan Recklin, who is we kind of met this guy by chance, but he's like the coffee dude who's kind of like inspired Wilson and I in our pursuit of coffee. But he's a very interesting guy, not from any sporting background at all, but is highly competitive in like other areas, such as coffee. But it would be us two, and then we'd have a third rotating guest every dinner. So and that would be from the wider friendship group. So guys just reading off names like Borat, Sweeney, Laverty, Declan. Yeah, we'd have those 2 guys and then a rotating third. That would be like...
This is going to be a constant dinner party. I love it, mate. Can I rotate in every now and then just to bring an old-timer in? Yeah. All right, thanks, mate. Sure. Dan Wilson, I haven't seen Dan.
This up and...
He's a top guy, Dan. He retired from the sport, about 2016 or something, 2015, around there, I think.
He retired 2018, I think it was.
I was at 18.
He won his last race, which was the Asia-Pac Champs in Western Sydney against an incredible field. He went out on a total high. He teased up. He did his whole career in ITU and then teased us with 18 months in 70.3 racing.
That's right.
Won almost everything, and then
he's like, I'm done.
Just went out gracefully.
Yeah, I can do that. I don't need to keep showing you. Next question, buddy. Yeah. Where do you see yourself in 5 years?
I reckon not too dissimilar from now. Probably obviously looking at a career change by that point, late 30s. I don't want to do triathlon forever. I think there will definitely come a time when I know it's I'll just know.
Yeah.
Kind of it won't be like the Sebi Keenler, I've got 12 months, I'm going to do all these races, and then you watch yourself decline over that 12 months, and then you probably regret setting 12 months. I should have done 6 months or something like that. It's not going to be something like that. It's probably also not going to be like the Rasmus Henning, I'm going to retire after Kona, and then you're not really focused on Kona, so you do shit and you probably regret being there. It'll probably just be end of the year, I think I'm done now, and I'll probably just fade away.
That's it.
But I also, we're at this interesting time with Ash's career development. So she's 32 and she's got this amazing career ahead of her in this sort of sport she's only just discovered. And we're also balancing that with, looking at starting a family in the future too. So who knows, 5 years we could have a couple little grubs running around, could be daddy daycare while mum's going out and earning a living. So
yeah, who knows, right? It's hard to predict 5 years. I think of you, I've talked to you with a good friend of mine and our business partner, Adam Malonis, who's been on the show, and we're both huge fans of yours and Ash. And I think when you do decide to want to transition, and I call it a transition because it is kind of a big deal at some point. I do actually think because of your creative genius, and it is a bit of a genius because the rest of us don't have it, I think you'll find a pretty good niche for yourself in whatever you choose. But anyway, last question here is, if we're told you had 6 months to live from now, how would you decide to spend those last 6 months?
I think it probably wouldn't be too dissimilar to what I'm doing now. I love training, and it's part of my training for triathlon specifically. It's part of my connection to the natural world. Being able to to go run in the bush, ride in the wide open spaces, and swimming. Yeah, it's okay. I probably wouldn't go to the pool anymore. I'd probably phase that out pretty quickly.
Mm-hmm.
I'd probably forget about PTO points and trying to stay in the rankings. So the racing aspect would probably wane off. But I'd still love to keep active. That's my like nourishment for the soul, is to be outside, and I'd probably work in a couple more camping trips, and probably have more conversations like this with the people I love, and let them know how they've impacted me and how they kind of have inspired me in various ways. So I think that's
great
definitely
answer.
like, I'd love to be better at communication, and it's actually the hard thing about triathlon is it's created so many friendships, but you've also like lost a lot of friendships over the way because it is so demanding and it is so hard to stay in touch with people. Yeah, I'd like to probably reconnect, and but hey, this is like quite a morbid question, but
it is kind of a morbid question.
Yeah, I know. I'd probably ride my bike. I mean, the short answer is I'd ride my bike a lot. I'd actually go do some swim sets with JR and probably find my limits. That's one thing that'd get me to the pool in the last 6 months, is doing.
You're already living. The beauty of this question is not so much on it being morbid. More, to me, it illustrates you're already living the life you want to be living, and that's kind of cool. I think that's awesome. Hey, let's finish off with some rapid fire questions. You ready?
Yeah, mate. I'm not good at these, but yeah, let's go.
First job.
Triathlon. Like, I've literally never had a real job.
Love it. I think Ash was the same. She made $500 from a running race. I think I remember her saying, it's like, oh yeah, I might as well do that. Yeah. All right. Favorite death metal band?
At the moment it is, mate, there's so many, but I went to a cattle decapitation show last week.
A what?
And yeah,
a cattle decapitation show. Okay.
But they're actually, that's the band.
Oh,
they're from California, and they're actually like an animal activist band. They're vegetarians, and they sing about like, animal activism. It's quite a like interesting band name. But anyway, I actually dealing with an injury for that from that show last week. I got elbowed in the face and my nose is broken. So
good thing we don't have the video on.
if I sound like a bit snuffly, it's because some guy elbowed me in the face actually straight in the nose in the mosh pit. So
in the mosh pit,
still recovering from that.
You are too funny. That is the best. All right, one war movie everyone should see. You said you enjoy the war movies. Which one?
I mean, it's hard to go past something like Platoon. With Oliver Stone. It's the messaging in that film. And you'd definitely put Apocalypse Now, like just the long, boring ones, right? Like the messaging from these films is like it's like everlasting, right?
Have you seen Leslie Patterson's All Quiet on the Western Front, her remake?
I haven't watched it. That's on the to-do list. So
she did an outstanding job. I mean, I've seen the older versions because I like you, love my war movies ever since being a kid. Always with my brother. Laura hates them, so I watch them on my own now. But All Quiet on the Western Front they did a really good job. Really good job. I mean, obviously they won a BAFTA, and I think they should have probably got the Academy Award, to be honest. But check that out, especially when we know it's also a creative triathlete. She really
100%. I'd probably add Terrence Malick's The Thin Red Line in there too. I used to rewatch that as a kid. School holidays, I would literally watch The Thin Red Line probably every second day.
That's an awesome film. I know, you're bringing back memories now. All right, one book you would gift to a friend? Do you have any favorite books that you would tell us that we all should read?
Mate, I would 100%, and I've already tried to do this, 100% The Silmarillion by J.R.R. Tolkien.
What's it called, sorry?
The Silmarillion. So it's kind of like the before Lord of the Rings. If you saw like the new Amazon Prime show, God, I forget what it's even called. The Amazon show, but it's like it's the prelude to the Lord of the Rings.
Okay,
it's just the most amazing book of. It's Tolkien's Legendarium, so it's like everything you know about Middle Earth, like the elves and the hobbits and men and the orcs and stuff. But it's the storyline is just amazing. I'm actually reading it now for the 4th time.
Wow.
I pretty much live this book basically. Like I gifted it to a mate, but he's I don't think, and I warned him. I said, like, if you get through the first sort of 10 to 15 pages, it's going to be like it could change you. But getting through those first 10 to 15 pages is going to be a real challenge. So, like, I don't know how you're going to go. So that's my definitely my answer to the Silmarillion.
I love that.
Just like give it a go.
Yeah.
Just try.
They have it on Audible.
And then
I'm more of a listener than I am a reader.
100%.
Yeah.
And so I've read it 4 times. I've probably listened to the audiobook more. And the guy who's recounting the story on Audible is actually like, his voice is amazing.
Don't you love that when you get a good narrator? I love when you get a good narrator. I just finished Green Lights, Matthew McConaughey's book. I didn't know, a guy in the sauna said I should read it, so went and got it. But what really makes it is it's so good to have Matthew McConaughey with his acting ability narrate. It was truly entertaining. It was actually a good book. Anyway, all right.
Sauna chat. Hey, was the guy wearing pants?
Hey, what was that?
In the sauna was the guy wearing pants. Because like you can always like know where the conversation's going if someone's like naked or not. Like, it's just interesting for an Aussie because when you're in the European saunas,
they're all naked. That's true. Well,
everyone's naked. We kind of grow up in Australia doing like towel changes. Even in the change rooms.
Well, I'm in conservative US. I'm in conservative US, mate. So people coming here with their full gym workout gear on, they're certainly not in there naked. All right, 2 most used apps on your phone.
Instagram for sure.
Yeah.
And then like music app. Like I don't listen to Spotify, but music.
Yeah.
Like Apple, like iPods.
Yeah.
Like I've still got all my music in physical format. Well, like they're all in files, of course. I've got a massive record collection, actual physical music collection, but just Apple Music. But I don't subscribe or any of that shit. I've just got all the files still neatly in my iTunes that I've curated for 20 years or something. I love it. So yeah.
I love it.
There you go.
So what is the greatest movie? What is the greatest decade of music? You have a favorite decade? Or is it all?
I reckon, for the styles that I listen to, like, say, a genre like death metal, it really came to the fore in, like, the 90s, the early 90s. So there's, like, certain areas, like Bay Area in Florida, New York, Finland, Sweden. They're kind of like the melting pot for 90s death metal. And I don't love it all. Like, some of it's trash, but some of them, like, it's just a kind of like a golden age in death metal. And it was this really exciting time where these sounds are like getting explored and all these ideas around like extreme music are being fleshed out. And it just would have been a really good time to be in the scene there, going to gigs and seeing bands come out of nowhere, like kind of not unlike triathlon these days. Like just bands coming out of nowhere with these records that are still celebrated, like 20 or 30 years on.
That's so cool.
Probably 90s death metal is like really, really special.
We're going to have to sit down one day, you and I, and just chat about this death metal, and you're going to have to introduce me properly to all of it, because I haven't had my eyes open to it. But maybe a couple of beers when we connect next. Actually, I think I'd like to do an episode with you in person. Yeah. Final question. Who does most of the house chores at home, you or Ash?
Oh, I mean, depends what you classify as chores, but 100% me. I put away. I mean, Ash does the cooking and she'll do the dishes 80% of the time, but I put away her clothes, mate. Like, I put away her bras and panties and run kit and cycling kit, because if I don't, it just sits there. And so when you consider the fleet of bikes that I have to maintain as well, and we live on, I wouldn't say land, but we've got a big block here. Where I do a lot of gardening. Like, that's part of my passion, is gardening, and just being in the garden and
pottering
after stuff. I mean, I don't want to downplay Ash's role around the house. Like, it's very important, and she, of course, plays an indispensable role in the housework. I don't know. Let's just say keep on side. It's even.
It's even Stevens. Well, mate, this has been awesome. This has been really cool just to connect. It's probably been one of my longer shows, to be honest, but it's just so great to listen to your stories. Quickly before you go, what do you got coming up? You've got one more Ironman. You got some sponsorship commitments, and you got Langkawi. Is it Langkawi? Sorry, in next week.
Yeah, so we got 70.3 Langkawi in Malaysia. I've never been there, but it's been a bit of a fixture on the circuit for a while, so it'd be great to get there.
Yeah.
Ironman Cascais in Portugal 2 weeks after that. So it's in Europe, so it's kind of out of the way for me right now. Like, it's not desirable, but I really want to see what I can do in another Ironman performance this year. And obviously, without sort of Kona, there was nothing in that October. There was nothing else in that sort of October time frame. So I'm hitting up that's 3 weeks now. And then, I've got an on-running summit in St. Moritz.
Oh, cool.
A week after that. So it's kind of like, perfect little segue after my European race. And then back home, I'll pretty much slide straight into the Noosa Tri.
Ooh.
And that'll be the last race of the year. And that's like my I've been trying to get back on the podium there since 2009. So
I know. Ash has won it that many times.
Yeah, she's going for title number 10 this year. So
I know. It's the one race. Not the one race. It's one race that I didn't win that I look back and go, I've been second and third a bunch of times. I never won it. It's like, wow. I just think it makes a long year to turn up November 4th or whatever it is, and I don't know. I'm always exhausted by then. But anyway, mate, this has been really cool. Thanks for coming on, mate, and sharing all your stories. You really are a delight to have on the show. So thanks, mate.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Greg. That was great. I haven't spoken about a lot of that. So
yeah, it was very cool.
To share it.
All right, buddy. Cheers. Stay on the line.